Hello, welcome to Die Rolling. I'm the ever excitable Adam, and today you're going to watch a how to play of Lander. This is a game which I've heard about. I've been really interested in playing it, and Dan from Lander has taken the time out to show us on Tabletop Simulator a walkthrough of it. So please enjoy.
So today we're going to go through Lander after the crash in Tabletop Simulator, and I will click on Start here. And just to take you through that, we've scripted Lander in Tabletop Simulator to have a few things done for you, such as setup and so forth. So we've got the player colors selected, and we're going to just work forward from here to start the game. Today we're going to play the quick game for time, but the setup is the same for each of the game modes. Now you'll see me moving around the screen using some of these cameras that we've set up. This is just to make it a little bit quicker in Tabletop. So I'm going to start the discussion with the main objective of the game, and that is that we have crashed on the first planet outside of our solar system with liquid water on its surface, and most of the crew have died aboard the Lander, and you take the role of a corporate representative vying to stake claim to the spoils of the planet Chimus that we've crashed on. You're going to win the game by achieving the most performance stars, and these are shown in the top right of the missions here. If we just go quickly over to the accolade roster, so if you press the AR button, so follow me along, the accolade roster shows that you can also achieve performance stars by receiving the performance bonus, and this is for achieving 3 missions of the same type per category. You are awarded an item and a bonus star. If you're a good person on this planet and you can increase your influence and standing within the colony, there are up to 4 performance stars available for you. The game features accolades. The best likeness to this is the longest road in Catan, and these are aspects of the game where you don't own them until the very end of the game, and they'll change hands through the game as people outperform each other in the relevant categories. The last additional performance star sits with the first player to go out of the game at the end of, in this case, year 3 or year 4 in the full game. So from the performance bonuses that you can get here and the performance stars that you'll get from completing the missions, we typically find that a 3-year game will finish somewhere here, maybe around the 14 to 18 mark, and a full game might finish around this corner, somewhere from 31 to 38, depending on what events come up. So the next thing I'd like to discuss is then the board. So if we press B for the board. Now, Lander is a resource management strategy game where you're dealing with 4 resources. These are energy, food, titanium, and water. The sectors that you see around the crash site, so if you zoom in, you can see the broken Lander here, and that's the colony base that's been established there in the artwork. And these sectors around the crash site provide you with the ability to upgrade their output. So just to take a couple of pieces to explain this, you'll start the game with each of you claiming 3 sectors. only one player can claim one sector. So you can't have two different corporations on the same sector. When you claim a sector, the sector will pay you the resource number that's next to where you've placed. And if you zoom in on a sector, you'll see that the top value has no little dots in it. That's the number 1. The value to then the bottom left is a level 1 upgrade. So you can see there's one little dotted line in there, and that will pay you 3 energy. And if you upgrade again to level 3, that will then pay you, level 2 will pay you 5 resources of energy. So you would basically place your pieces on the board like so to indicate level 1, 2, and 3 structure. Now you're in setup able to claim any tiles anywhere on the board. So what you might notice is that the tiles all have different values on them. So if you claim a tile that has a 2 at the starting value, you'll see that it's better early game to look for those tiles with 2s and claim those. And we typically think that it's best to claim 1 resource of each type. Now, this would produce 2 energy, this would produce 2 titanium, and this would produce 2 food. However, the water resource is also in the game, and what you'll find is that water is not really needed that much early game, but is really crucial in the late game because a lot of the missions require water. If we just come over, or I'll just bring it over into the middle here so you can see, while you can upgrade your land-based sectors, as I've shown you with level 1, 2, and 3 structures, the water bonus is how you upgrade your water income. So if you've got 2 sectors in the same river system, then you get no water bonus. But as soon as you get 3, you get an extra water. If you've got 4, you still get an extra water. But the key thing here is that if you get 5, you get a bonus 3 water, and those 3 additional resources are significant. You can really see the difference when it gets to late games if you've played it a couple of games. So when you look at how you develop the board, I'll just bring this supply limit card into play. You are only able to make a small number of improvements to the planet because in the crash we lost all the manufacturing equipment, and there's a supply limit on how much you can actually create in terms of making new structures. So in the first year you can make 4 structures come onto the planet, and in subsequent years you can make 5 each year. So how you do your upgrades and your expansions and what resources you get in, and whether you're upgrading or getting a water bonus, etc., will all be decision points that have relevance. And what we've done to design the game is that the resources coming in, if I just show you the resource tracker here, what you'll typically find is that by design, the number of structures that you get, you should be able to be getting in, say, 10 energy, 10 food, say 9 water, but maybe only 3 or 4 titanium, for example. And what you're playing with the resource management is that you'll typically get 3 of these columns to be quite good, and 1 of them will be poor. And it's how you figure out the problem of not having those resources. And it could be any column could be down. depending on your decisions in game. How you manage your resources through that problem makes for a really interesting puzzle to solve. So when I said about starting with the 3 twos developed, that's 6 resources, and the hard resources are useful earlier game. You might, instead of wanting to get this 2 food, you might play on this 1 food, and it pays one food and 1 water. So you're still getting 6 resources in, but it will probably mean that you can get that 5 river over the course of the game. Whereas if you start here, you might not be able to get the 5 river. You might only be able to achieve a 3 or 4.
Okay.
But what you see here is then if you want then food later on, you're really stuck because this tile doesn't upgrade well. It's basically useless except for what it starts with. So then the question is about expanding, and through the orders in the game, you basically will draw tiles, and once the game begins, even though you can place anywhere at the start of the game, you're now only able to expand along your efficient pathway. So you can only claim adjacent to you.
Okay.
So if you like this, if you like this food sector, you can't see the outside of the board from this tile. It's not at the tip, it's only on a long edge that you are adjacent. So you can't see the outside of the board there, but you can see it on the outside of the board there. So if you like this tile, then you'd place that there, and then you could claim it. So you might start the game in one sort of configuration, but then as you expand, then you could upgrade this one and get your food in that way. But no matter what you do, you'll probably be stuck with one column of those resources being low and the others being high.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the board. Now, all those resources coming in will enable you, if we go back to the mission roster, we talk about the missions now, the resources are going to enable you to complete these missions.
All right.
Cool.
Now, by design, when we played Catan many years ago, we were very frustrated that just when you feel like your engine is going in Catan, the game ends. And we wanted to make Lander such that you had a really good period of the game where your engine was going, you had stuff that you could do, and the game ended later. So we have this big resource ramp where when you do 2 upgrades, suddenly you're going from getting 1 energy in to getting 6 energy in. And in the kind of the mid game, you've got lots of options and you can go in many different directions. But when it comes down to then starting to want to complete missions, the missions are divided into construction, logistics, and research. To focus on the construction missions first, the construction missions basically, that's very handy, are 1, 2, 3, and 4 stars. Each mission has its requirements at the top of the card, and the construction missions are only relating to the board. So that's 8 claim sectors in total, level 3 titanium sector, 3 separate energy sectors, 2 energy sectors. So the missions will lead you in a direction of having to achieve certain things to complete them. So you always have to have satisfied the completion criteria. And once you've done that, you then have to pay the relevant number of resources. So that means that you have to obviously upgrade and expand into the right things to get them. Then when you pay for them and you pay for the mission, you are presented with a choice of a bonus. So it's either this bonus or this bonus.
Okay.
The way that we've weighted the game is that the cost of the missions is different. Now, the construction missions, if you look at the 4-star here, this is 10 resources for 4 stars.
Yep.
A lot of your resources will go into developing that resource engine. So the missions are more expensive than over here. As you can see, a research mission on your crew, which I'll come to in a minute, that's 7 resources for 3 stars. And the bonus here, none of the construction missions give resources as bonus, whereas these missions, as the research missions, do give resources as a bonus. So what the kind of the decision is to like how you will achieve your performance stars.
Okay.
And what you might see is that each of the mission types, if I come on to the sorry,
No worries.
if I come on to the logistics missions now, these relate to the development of your crew, and these only come in the flavor. It wasn't quite as lucky as the other one. Wow, all the big ones have come
All
out.
the 4s.
All the 4s. Oh, and there's a 1 on the table. So these missions only come in the flavor of 1, 2, and 4-star. They're very expensive, but 1 resource cheaper at the 4-star level. So these are all 9 resources.
Okay.
And these are looking at the developments of your crew. Okay. Now, what I'll do is I'll go and discuss the crew and then come back to these missions.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we can now go over to the CC button for colony cards, we'll discuss the crew. Now, Lander has 3 types of crew. There are engineers, scientists, and operations staff. Each crew member is defined by their skill in the relevant class, and crew members can be 3, 4, or 5.
Okay.
They are also defined by their character traits. So there are 6 traits in the game, and they are diplomatic, fanatical, diplomatic, fanatical, innovative, resourceful, strategic, and resilient. And each crew member has two of these traits on them. You'll see at the bottom of the crew card there is some text, and this text is their leadership ability. Now, just to show a crew roster over here, if we just click on the red button for Cellulife, and then I'll bring over these crew. The crew member's leadership ability is only active when it is in the crew leader slot, and the other crew members, their leadership ability is not active. Through the course of the game, you'll start with 2 crew members, and then you can acquire new crew members from the status deck. So you can use the leadership ability of this crew member, whatever it may be. You can place a marker on them to say that it's been used. You might then buy a new crew member later that year. You can move that leader down, and then you can have a new leader come, and their leadership ability is then active.
Okay.
At no point can you move a crew member from down here to the right-hand side of the leader into the leader slot. Apart from if your crew leader gets killed. So if there is a leadership vacuum, you can promote any of the 3 up to any of the 3 crew members into the leadership slot. So that would be one way that the leader could go there.
Hmm.
Another way that that leadership ability can be active is in the game has a series of ways that you can develop these crew, and there is a training card that activates the leadership ability of a crew member. Now, these cards are very valuable because having 2 crew leadership abilities is really great, but when you attach a training card to a crew member, it can't be moved. So who you attach it to is quite important, because you can't take it off. And whereas you can cycle different crew members through there, you really want to attach this to somebody that you kind of like that ability.
Yeah.
There are ways of these other 3, but as you can see on this card, it says leadership max 1 per crew. So even if you've got 2 of these in your hand, you can still only ever attach 1 to your crew.
Okay.
So you are going to basically develop your crew with different training cards. So you can add these training cards. There's no requirements on them. You can add them to any crew member as you see fit. And you typically stack the cards like so. Now, the constraint is that there are only 4 attachment slots per crew member. So how you develop your crew is significant, because you can't just stack everything on one person and do everything easily. When your crew starts to develop, with training cards, they're fixed, they cannot move. Traits can also be attached. So you could learn, for example, for Elise, you might want her to be diplomatic for 1 or more reasons. And basically you can learn that trait. Now, all the trait cards are double-sided, so you basically spin the card round and you attach the card to the crew member depending on what you want. But when you've made that decision, it cannot be undone. You can't pull knowledge out of your head. Now, training and traits are fixed, as discussed. Can go on anywhere, anyone, anywhere. Items can move around. And there are a number of different items in the game that enable you to do different things. There are 8 different types of items. I probably won't be able to bring all 8 of them out because there's 50 cards. These out. Now, the key thing with items is that they typically have an attachment criteria. So if you look at this enhanced drill, it requires you to have developed a single crew member with 6 engineering.
Oh, wow.
So that then means that if you had this set up, you can't attach it to Delara because she's got 4, and you can't attach it to Casey because he's got 4. So you might have wanted to attach that there originally, and then you can attach the drill because you meet the attachment criteria. Now, this is kind of an edge case because getting a bonus 2 titanium from your crew is really valuable. If you were set up like this previously, I hate Tabletop Simulator. Why does it keep jumping? There we go. Right, so this 1 titanium has an attachment criteria of 4. So you can have it on Casey. As a free order at the start of your go, which I'll come to, you can move this onto Delara. So the fact that items can move, when it's a resource, it doesn't necessarily matter. But when you're talking about the cards that give you the relative classes moving, this can be really powerful. And that means that you could put it on her, and she's got 6 science, engineering, she's got these 2 traits. Or you could move it over to him, and he's got now the science, the engineering, diplomatic, and strategic.
Yeah.
So items are really great because you can build your tableau, and the different training and so forth enables you then to move all your items around, which is now I'm going to come back to. If we click on the MR button and look at the mission roster again, come back to the developing of your crew to complete these missions. And what you'll see is that the key thing about the logistics missions is that the black banner under the title says required among your crew to complete. So all 20 logistics missions, you can put the stuff anywhere on your crew. Doesn't matter. So in terms of like ease of completing them, you only have to get the stuff. It doesn't matter where you place it. And as such, the missions are relatively expensive. So versus a research mission. Now,
Okay.
the research missions are designed to be 3 stars, 2 stars, and 1 star. And where's the 2 star? And what there you go. So let's just put these back. What you'll see from the research missions is that they're really cool to do because they all give you like resource sort of bonuses. So that one gives you an expansion, that one gives you food, water, upgrade, a free crew member, an expansion. But the very, very specific thing about these missions is that you need to get the relevant traits and class criteria on 1 crew member.
Okay.
Okay.
And how you step through the game as to how you develop your crew, how you develop the board, and what missions you complete and how you complete them, and that one of your resource columns is probably going to be short, is where the puzzle is.
Okay.
And what's really exciting is that the 2 food that you got from completing this mission, you might have had the columns of energy, titanium, and water being quite high, and you might be missing food. So completing this mission might give you the food that you then need to complete that mission, for example.
Okay.
And how the missions then chain link and so forth is really cool. What's also interesting is that the puzzle moves as you play the game. So you start the game, and whomever's the player 1 will choose 2 of these missions to come here. So it could be 2 of the same or 2 different. So you might choose to start the game and go, I'll go a construction and a research. Right? When you complete one of these missions, which are in the active slots, then you then choose as the completing player which mission comes down.
Okay.
And you typically look around the table, see what your friends are doing, and try and make it so that they can't complete the mission.
Yeah.
So if someone's close to that and not that, then that one comes down. You then get to choose which mission comes over as the completing player. So that ability to be able to choose which of these 2 comes down, choose which of these 3 goes across, means that you start to stack the mission roster in your favor.
Yeah. Okay.
And it can be to your strategic advantage to try and lock the board by looking around at what other people can do to try and prevent them doing things easily. So yeah, how like what missions you complete and how they complete them and so forth will all come into it. And then, as I mentioned, if we go back over to the accolade roster on the AR button, the performance bonuses means that if you get 3 of the same type of mission, that you'll get a bonus star. Now, in a full game, you can get 10 missions, and you can it's possible you can get each of the 3 categories satisfied. And you can get basically 3 bonus stars. In a quick game, you won't have the resources and the time to be able to do it. So you might win by a star just by getting like 3 of one type, and maybe you'll have 1 or 2 of the other ones.
Okay.
So again, that that star can be significant for the difference between the winner and the loss. Now, I mentioned about the accolades previously being like the longest road in Catan.
Yep.
What we've done is set them like an achievement record. So it's not about the current state of the game, it's about what the highest value was ever recorded.
Okay.
So the upgrade expert, you might get to say 6 upgrades, and then you might have somebody steal your sector and you lose a couple of upgrades. You always achieved 6, so you don't go
Okay.
down. However, if you lost 2 and somebody was to get 7, you're now starting from 4, if you know what I mean. So you always achieved 6, and if you've got 6, then that's
Okay.
fine. Somebody always has to beat your achievement to be able to take the stars from you.
Yeah.
In this, with the board accolades per game, they're separated into upgrade expert, river commander, and expansion master, and you'll randomly deal one of these 3 to be face up. So every game, the accolades will skew how you play. So in this game, you're rewarded for upgrading more. In others, you'll see more expansions. In others, you'll see everyone going on rivers. With operations honors, again, this is randomly drawn, engineering, science, or ops. What you'll see with this one is that you need on this one to have 2 upgrades to qualify for it at the beginning. You'll need to have 8 operations on your crew to qualify for the 2 stars. This is the most logistics mission stars completed, starting with 2 stars worth.
Yeah.
In a 3-year game, I might imagine that you'll maybe get somewhere between 4 and 6 upgrades. Depending on what crew members come out, I might imagine that you'll be somewhere around the 15, 16 mark. We'll win it, potentially. And then the logistics planner is just, if you both start going at logistics missions, who has the most, more quickly than the other one. So how those might go back and forward, and how you beat each other for them through the game, will be seen. The last thing to talk about is the action cards. So if we go over to the CC button.
Yep.
So on here, the action cards enable the game to have player interaction, and we've designed the game such that there are 3 different types of action cards that you'll see. The first type that you see on the left here will give you influence, and it is because you're doing something nice for the colonists. So all players draw 1 card from the top of the training trait or item discard piles in the current turn order. You'll get an influence for that. You've been nice to everyone. Anything you do for yourself that doesn't hurt someone else or benefit anyone else has no influence cost to play the card. So this is just good for you, and it's a free crew member. Now, what you'll see on these 2 cards is that it says in the black banner at the top here, required among your crew to play. So in a similar way to the logistics missions, you can put the traits, you can put the classes on these cards anywhere, and it doesn't matter. The same with these 2 cards. There's a trait on this one. They can go anywhere. But there are cards which, there we go. are more like the items required on one crew member to play. And that's where you might have a scientist who isn't resourceful, that you might get a resourceful trait card from to develop the crew member to play the card. And the card is quite cool because you get a sector, connect to anyone on the planet, claim it, and gain one resource of its land type. So a bonus sector and a bonus resource. So developing your crew to play the cards is also important.
Okay.
Now, the negative cards. So there's a free upgrade. The negative cards require influence to play. So this is a great example, just randomly these cards being here. Take sector. You can basically take an opponent's sector adjacent to you or connected via the same river. If it's level 2 or level 3 sector, one structure is lost when you take control. Now, all the cards that relate to the board have this or statement on them. And they all say or gain any 2 resources from colony stores. And the same on the free upgrade. You can do the thing on the board or gain any 1. And what we found is that you can get sort of edge cases where you get late game scenarios where the development of the board wouldn't enable you to do in any way contend for the board-based accolade, and then the card kind of became useless. So we've put this or statement on there such that you can use that card any way you like. Either use it aggressively to take structures on the board, or even though you might want to take the structures, the any 2 resources might be more valuable to you at that specific moment in time, and you play it that way. There is an order to the way that the cards are played. So if you see this reference card, you play the action card, you satisfy the play criteria. Does the card target another player? No. You basically update the influence, perform the action. If it does target another player, you have to declare the intent of the action. So if you're going to take a sector, you have to specifically say, I'm taking this sector for the player to make a decision on. If you're killing a crew member, you need to specifically say, I'm killing that crew member. So that the players then have the ability to veto these action cards. Now, just to kind of finish the explanation, if we press the red for the CL, for Cellulife, this is your influence track. So all players start on 9 influence. And you can only get influence by completing missions, or having a leadership ability give you some influence, and there are only a few that do. Or getting those action cards that enable you to do something nice for other people, and you get influence. So influence is a really valuable resource, because if you can get up here to 10, 11, and 12, those stars are really valuable. But these action cards can be potentially quite devastating. And you have a veto tracker here. Now, all players start with 1 veto, so you can basically block a card. You can't ever veto a veto, so basically when you play it, that's it, that card is stopped and move on. But when you use your veto and you have no other vetoes, if you look at the order options mat over here, you can buy a veto for 3 influence. So you can very quickly think, oh, well, I will spend, because I want to protect myself against all the other bad things that might happen to me. You can spend 3 and drop yourself down to 6, and yes, you get your veto back, but now you're a long way from those stars. So how you complete missions, use the crew, use the action cards, are all that interplay as to how you might then get up and actually score some stars of influence at the end of the game. Now, to just go through the orders in the game, what you can see if we've made this big is that we've split the number of orders up into anytime orders, so they can be played at literally any time. So that's use a veto. So it's not your turn. Someone's played a card, you can veto it. And in a multiplayer game, for example, Adam might have played the card. It might be targeting you, Will, but I might veto it for reasons personal to me. Then there might be a reason why I don't want Adam to, for example, take your sector and take the upgrade accolade from me.
Yeah.
So having vetoes is quite interesting in a multiplayer game in that respect. Earning the accolade, typically you'd make your turn, so the accolade is collected after it's actually your go, but you could have achieved it and you can claim it at any time on anyone else's go. The free orders are that you'll have cards in your hand, which we call your inventory. So you'll have training and trait cards. You can attach those to your crew at the start of your turn. You can attach and move or discard any items. You can convert any 2 resources for any 1. And you can perform a system hack. The system hack enables you to get that absolute certainty over what you're buying. So you'll see under the next line, buy top item card, training, trait and action. You pay 2 of the relevant resource and you buy that card blind. But we've put the system hack in the game so that you can use your influence to mitigate the randomness of the decks. So you can basically flip over the top 3 training cards, and the order says reorder the top cards. So you might have had the 3 science come out last. You might put the cards back in an order that science is on top. And because that was a free order that happens before your go, you can now buy the card using 2 food. So that's the card you want. You spent your influence to get it. You've gone down to 8 influence, but now you've got the thing you need to either play the action card that you want to play or complete the mission as you want to complete it. You've then got the board-based orders. So you'll see on the left-hand side the upgrade. You're basically adding a structure to a sector you own. Expand, you're going to draw a new sector and claim adjacent to you. Acquire the top crew member is energy and food. And there's an option here of you can pay an extra water to acquire one of the top 3. So for example, if Christina here, the scientist, was the top crew member and you just didn't need science or you didn't need the traits and you didn't necessarily want the ability at that moment in the game, you could just say, okay, well, I'll pay an extra water. So food, energy and water, that's the extra coolant you need to see the other crew members. And maybe it was the engineer you were looking for and you take them. And then once they go onto your crew, these would then go onto the bottom of the deck. And then the new crew member is shown. So there's always a crew member face up, visible to base your strategy on. Buying the veto, we discussed. Playing an action card, we discussed. Completing a mission, is you get the influence for completing a mission. Recycle is quite interesting. You can basically, you'll have a bunch of cards in your hand at some point, probably year 2 and 3, that at certain points of the game, you might find that the cards aren't helping toward what you want to do. So you can discard any 3 colony cards, which colony card is defined as either action, item, training, or trait. You can then view any 2 from any of those 4 decks, and you keep one of them. So it's an expensive way of changing up your path in the game. You also get a private mission dealt to you. So all players will have a private mission. If you get stuck with it, or again, it just moves away from where you want to go, you can use an influence to view any 2 missions and keep one of those. Using your leadership ability is typically an order. Some of the leaders have passive abilities. And then there's also an order where you can add an extra structure to your supply limit, or you can move a structure on the board. So that's another order. So what you'll find is that when you start on 9 and 10, 11, 12 is so close to you, the game makes it really easy for you to spend influence and very quickly. And because getting it is kind of difficult to do and it's scarce, it's difficult to get back at that track. Just to come over, if we come back over to the accolade roster, just to conclude here, you'll see up here the game is played in these 6 phases. So here the game will start with the bid phase. Player 1 is determined by bidding influence to be player 1. You can bid 0. If you start and bid 0, then if the next player bids 0, you get it by default.
Okay.
If you bid 0, you can't come back into the bidding. If you bid 1 and the other player bids 2, you can rebid 3.
Okay.
Only the player who has the winning bid spends the influence. What I would say is that influence is so valuable in the game that typically, unless there's a specific reason why you need to be player 1 and complete a mission before somebody else, you typically want to be spending close to no influence to get colony governor. Like bids of 0, like 0, 1 or 2, I would say would be a maximum. Whomever is colony governor then gets to make the decision on the event in the event phase. So each year an event happens to the colonists, and being colony governor, you get to make the decision that favors your corporation. Now, all the events affect all players, but you can typically skew things in your favor. So here you would choose for whether all players to pass 2 colony cards to the left or right, or all players discard 2 colony cards. And that's just a decision that you'd make at that game point. There are all sorts of different events. So for example, you might discard cards. Here you're getting free crew members from either the top of the stasis deck or from the morgue. Here this event changes the resource production of the board, and you choose as the colony governor whether energy sectors are up or water sectors, with titanium sectors being down. So there's all sorts of things which being colony governor is kind of valuable, but you might imagine that the value of that is maybe a couple of resources to discern. We've kind of figured out after all this time that 1 influence is worth somewhere between 1 and 2 resources. So once you've determined the event, the exploration phase of the year, you basically draw 3 sectors, pick 1, claim adjacent. You'll then get all of your resources in, and you get 3 cards, 2 action, an item, and then you get to pick either a training or a trait card. You then do all the orders in the development phase, so effectively you'll spend all your resources or most of your resources and get to a stage where you either can't do anything, or you specifically are going to save some resources and cards into the next year, and you play out. Year end is basically just a tidy up, so you clean up the markers from your crew members that you've used, and then you start the next year. So there'll be a setup phase where you'll have 3 sectors, 2 crew members, and then we'll start with 3 years of this flow. And hopefully I've explained everything sufficiently that we can see you get in.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
And if you want to see us do this in action, Will and myself have done a game of it with Dan talking us through and advising us. He's essentially like a little advisor, helping us out get through turns. So yeah, you can watch that as soon as it's up. I've been the ever excitable Adam. Until next time, stay safe or die rolling.